And here's Howie. He's done a great job with the cap. He's done a great job with building a team. But, dude, get out of these coaches' sandbox. You think that's one of the issues?
Well, look who they've hired. I mean, they hired Doug Peterson kind of out of nowhere. With all due respect to Doug, he wasn't a seasoned NFL coach. So they hired somebody that could be a little malleable. Howie loves to not give up the fact that the players he's brought in or drafted are busts. So with that proviso, that he's going to always support. Hey, play this guy. I drafted him. If you don't play him, I'm going to look bad. Sirianni came out of nowhere too. I mean, that was like a crazy hire. But again, it's a guy who will play ball. Now, Doug, after a while, felt himself and got tired of playing ball.
All right, I've been waiting for this for a couple weeks now. And I'm going to tell you guys this. I have never liked the book more, but hated the story. Okay? I've never in my life, Mike Missinelli, let's bring him on here, Xander. Mike, I hope that's not that bad of a comment when I say I love the book. Okay? The perfect season. Okay? How Penn State stopped the hurricane and to go on and win the national title. I love the book, but I hate the story. It's one of my favorite books, and I share it with everybody. Thanks so much for doing this, man.
I wouldn't like the book either, Dan. I got to be honest with you, because I got to think that loss lives with you guys almost every day.
You know what, Mike?
This is so ironic.
I got a tattoo on my arm, and I'm going to tell you why. It's the 86 season. I'll never forget this. I'm standing there, and Steve Wisniewski goes, "We beat you. We freaking beat you." And I'm sitting there looking at these guys. We hold these guys to 160 yards. And you know what's crazy? I'm friends with every one of these guys now. With Shane Conlon, we're all buddies. And it's funny, after all the years, after we moved from that night, there was 5 seconds left in the game. Jimmy wanted to pull us out because we played so well. And I sat there and I just looked at Wisniewski and I go, man, I can't believe it. And I had so much respect. And Joe Paterno came over to me when we were getting on a plane to go back. He was going somewhere and I was going somewhere. And I'll never forget this, Mike. He goes, "You're a hell of a player. You and Jerome Brown remind me so much of Salt and Pepper." And I was like, "Who's that?" He goes, "Millen and Clark. Look them up." And I went like this. And I found out all those years. And I know the stuff that's been said, but I love Joe Paterno because he put his hand on my shoulder when he didn't have to. And he just goes like this. He goes, "Look, you should have came to Penn State." I go, "You had the black shoes, coach. Big Sills has to have white shoes." But it was just – it's a magical time. And, Mike, that game still to this day is the most viewed game in the history of college football.
It is. It came to like a little backdrop of the story. First of all, who would have thunk all these years? I gave you a kind of a starring role in that book.
Yeah, you did.
You had a lot of golden moments in that book. And years later, here I am on your podcast. I mean, like, the way life works is amazing. But I was at the game as I'm a Penn State guy. So I was at the game because it was a monster game. And I could not believe that you guys could not score on that final drive. And so the more I thought about it, like, it was just the legendary, the most most champion-like moment in Penn State sports history. And I started to think, I go, Penn State may never win another national championship. And so I thought, I wrote the book after I had talked to a lot of people who shared a lot of stories with me, inside stories about that season, that team, you guys at the Fiesta Bowl, all that good stuff, which really sells a book, all the charming stories. And I said, this book, if I write this book, will have shelf life because they're never going to win another national championship. So that's the way I kind of wrote it, that this is like this legendary game that might not happen again. But the circumstances of the game came together like it was magic. You couldn't have like scripted it the way it came together for you guys to play Penn State, both independent and the Fiesta Bowl just lurking out there, ready to bid for a number 1 versus a number 2. It was fascinating backstory to it.
Oh, absolutely. And Mike, the game used to be played where the Outback Bowl is played now, 11:30 Eastern. They moved it to January 2nd. They came to us and they go, "This is going to be the really first national championship football game." And we were like, "Let's do it, man." And again, all the years removed. And, and I'm going to say this, Mike, and it's probably not going to be very popular with people, but I don't know the story and the backstories about the things that went on with Joe, but I love Joe Paterno. I mean, he came to my home. He recruited me. You know, he looked like my Uncle Bucky. I was sorry sometimes. He always goes, you should have. And I go, you know, Coach, you know, my grandfather wanted me to go to Penn State. And he's like, well, you're a great player. And, you know, how do you feel, Joe Paterno, all these years removed?
Well, listen, I don't worship at the altar of Joe Paterno. And that was a dark, it's really funny because I spoke at length with Sandusky for that book because his defensive game plan was pretty unique.
Mike, he went in my house and recruited me. And I told people this. Jerry Sandusky's the greatest defensive coordinator in the history of college football, and I don't have a problem saying that. Okay,
yeah, I mean,
so it's crazy.
Listen, you know what he did to Vinny. He had 7 deep, and Vinny didn't really process it. I being Italian,
Thank
I feel like older Italians don't want to be bothered with stuff.
Right.
So like I don't, it's funny because he really wasn't that close to Sandusky. I know there's a lot of people say, well, he had to preserve him because he was so close to him and he was he really didn't associate with him that much. But I think he knew that he didn't want to know about these dirty secrets. And now that's his fault. But you know how older Italians are; they don't want to hear that creep stuff.
Plus, it's uncomfortable talk for that era.
So in a lot of ways, that was the denial of Joe when it came to that. But listen, you talk to his ex-players. It's funny because you know this. You like coaches that resonate in your life, and you don't like them when they're there, but then somehow they pop into your brain later on. And this lesson that you learn from him. I think he was that type of guy. The guys that play for him didn't like him at the moment. They appreciated him afterwards. And I can't absolve him from all that stuff. I think there were a lot of things that really should have been activated a lot earlier. And that's the fault, I think, of the president at the time and the athletic director. And they were trying to protect Paterno from the whole thing. So that's the way I feel about it. The way I feel about Penn State football is go ahead.
Let me bring it to modern day then. Since November 9th, 2019, James Franklin's 14-13. Gets a $10 million per year deal. What's your take on him?
I don't like it. It's funny. Listen, I'm Penn State fans for the most part are happy to be there. And I say this with all admiration. If you're happy just being there and Happy Valley and the whole thing, I'm in it because I like to have the pride of being an alum of a college that wins the national championship or is a contender. And so what I hear about Franklin all the time is, well, and here's the narrative. He's a great recruiter, but I don't think he's a great coach on the sidelines. Well, if you're that great a recruiter, are you better than Ohio State? Because that's the standard. Either you have to be better than Ohio State or you're just an average recruiter, the way I look at it, right? Because if you're not going to be a contender like Ohio State is every year for national championship, if you're not going to have 7-8 players drafted every year, then how good of a recruiter are you?
Agreed, 100%. I think he's overrated. And I'll tell you this, the guy who really turned that whole thing around was Bill O'Brien. And I love how he poured the cement, at least after all the scandal, and the way he made it fashionable, telling kids, hey, if you go to Alabama, you may play a year. You come here, I'm going to give you a shot to play 4 years. And that's how he sold it. Mike, let me throw you into the Eagles now. I'm not a Jalen Hurts fan because I haven't seen it. And I'm not one of these guys that rubs the lamp and gives you like crystal ball conversations. I look at what the kid's done. And to me, when I watch him play, okay, just because you add 4 new tires to your Ferrari doesn't mean the engine works. And that's what you get kind of in a way with A.J. Brown. Just because he's out there, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to find him. I get he's got all these intangibles. But, Mike, it's the NFL. You don't get patted on the back for not robbing a bank.
I'm totally with you when it comes to him. People ask me all the time. And I say, I have to see more. Like I'm not on either side right now. Like I don't hate him, but he's got to show that he's got to convert a 3rd and 8 and stand in the pocket and be comfortable with that. I haven't seen that yet. Now, by the same token, the fact that he breaks out of there and breaks defenses' hearts by converting a first down with his legs is a good thing. I think this year they have given him what he needs to flourish. And if he doesn't, then you have your answer on the quarterback. Their offensive line is solid. Their receiving core has gotten more solid. The running situation, I don't know what to make of it yet, but he should be better this year. And we'll know first 5-6 games whether he's an NFL starter for a contending team.
Mike, am I right when I say this? And I've talked to Doug Peterson about this. He told me on Thursdays he had conversations with the general manager, Howie Roseman, when it came to game day situations on which players were playing on Sunday. And I'm like this, hang on. You're telling me the general manager is in your sandbox on Sundays and he's telling you who's active or not? He's like, Sills, that was my issue with him the whole time. Don't tell me the people I need to play, especially situationally like Belichick. One week you see a guy, Mike, with 200 rushing yards. The next week the guy's inactive. It all comes in matchups. And here's Howie. He's done a great job with the cap. He's done a great job with building a team. But, dude, get out of these coaches' sandbox. You think that's one of the issues?
Well, look who they've hired. I mean, they hired Doug Peterson kind of out of nowhere. With all due respect to Doug, he wasn't a seasoned NFL coach. So they hired somebody that could be a little malleable. Howie loves to not give up the fact that the players he's brought in or drafted are busts. So with that proviso that, he's going to always support, hey, play this guy. I drafted him. If you don't play him, I'm going to look bad. Sirianni came out of nowhere too. I mean, that was like a crazy hire. But again, it's a guy who will play ball. Now, Doug, after a while, felt himself and got tired of playing ball. But Sirianni's all about it. So until he gets to the point where he's Belichickian, he's going to play ball. But that said, listen, they did a pretty good job. Defensively, they were really weak. And I think they did a really good job filling in some gaps, which really kind of glosses over the fact that they didn't get it right in the first place. But at least they tried to rectify it.
Mike, I want to tell you, I get Frank Reich on the show a lot. I know Frank 40 years from, I first started my college career at Maryland. Then I went to the University of Miami, and Frank was my teammate. And I listened to this story on Sirianni. So they initially were talking about dealing Wentz and Frank confirmed this on our show. They were initially talking about Wentz going to Indy. And I said, who made the call? It's funny, Howard Eskin goes, send me that interview. And I sent it to Howard. Howard's like, so wait a minute. It first started with Wentz going to Indianapolis. And then in the process, Doug was still hired. And all of a sudden, Frank was asked questions about Nick Sirianni. And Frank started selling him as that conversation. And all of a sudden, before you know it, I'm like you, Mike. I go, Nick Sirianni, the wide receiver coach in San Diego at the time when they were still there. And then now he's a head coach. And then you just put it in what is going on in today's NFL. Kevin Stefanski, you see a lot of these young guys that don't have jobs. All of a sudden, they're head coaches. So, I mean, that's a really weird dynamic on how he got that job. Are you a fan of Sirianni? I'm a fan because he's a Paisan, so I'm in a way. But, I don't know.
Well, I thought it was ridiculous when he first came in and listening to the stuff he said. It was just kind of laughable that this was an NFL coach.
Oh, the seedings.
He was doing the rock, paper, scissors, and he's wearing the players' T-shirts and all this kind of Harry horse shit. And the more I looked at it, and listen, I think it was helped by the fact that their schedule really was conducive to them winning as many games. So I'm not really sold on him yet. I don't know what kind of guy he is yet, but I have to give him. Last year they held it together to win some games, and they're pretty optimistic about what they can do this year. It was a very odd hire, and his initial press conference was like, I was thinking to myself, if I'm hiring a coach and a guy comes in with that, because he was so over the top high schoolish, I go, I can't give him the job. But like I said, I don't know what they saw that was different than what I would see. And God bless the guy. I hope he develops into a good coach for Philadelphia Eagle fans' sake.
Absolutely, man. Bona fortuna to him. I'm pulling for him here, but I mean, holy cow, the Jalen Hurts shirts and the Cowboys shirts. I'm like, I thought I was at a prep rally back in high school, man, getting ready to go down to the Jersey Shore for a couple weeks there. Hey,
well, here's the thing, and you know this. Like pro players can't be conned, right? So
No.
the initial honeymoon is, you win some games. Okay, well, we can put up with Harry High School. And you start losing games, and I start to roll.
Look at Urban Meyer. I mean, they figured that stuff out right away. I call him Urban Liar. So, I mean, all the players they kind of looked at this guy and they went, come on, this guy's a bunch of BS here. Mike, let me go over to the defense again one last time here with you here. Are you concerned with this? Brand new cornerback. You bring in Kaiser White. You bring in Hassan Reddick. You got two new dudes added to the rotation with Nakobe and with Jordan Davis here. I mean, do you look at too many faces on that side of the ball? And you got a defensive coordinator that your boy Seth Joyner, myself, and everybody bashes every single chance we can get. I don't know if you're a fan of the guy, but I don't know how he got a job interview to be a head coach with the Texans.
Well, listen, he was like the nouveau guy, right? He's on the on-deck circle with the head coach. Last year, he didn't distinguish himself at all. The only thing you can do is to go, okay, they're weak here, weak here, weak here. The only thing you do is add some personnel and trust the guy that he's going to know what to do with it. I don't know from Jonathan Gannon yet, but the fact that they added pieces where they were obviously weak has to help the guy out. And we'll see how he utilizes it. I mean, I don't know what kind of front he's going to run because he's got Hassan Reddick. What position you going to put him in? Is he going to trust Dean to start? So far, it looks like Dean. They like Dean as a starter. So, but it's really early. It's up to Gannon. Listen, the thing is, you can't hide, and we'll know like right away. Okay, wow, they have better personnel. They should be better. If they're not, it must be defensive coordinator's fault. And, in Philly, it cooks pretty hot towards that.
Hey, Mike, I'll tell you this. Let me give you this when I start talking to all the Eagle fans here, man, everyone starts going, don't bullshit us, Silio. And listen here, I'm going to tell you flat out here, man. Okay? I like you. Okay? I like your show, but I hate you. Okay? I want you to know that flat out and understand this. Don't bullshit anybody. I'm not trying to bullshit anybody. We know how you guys are. I've never seen more passionate fans, and I've never seen more underrated fans and more knowledgeable fans. Like, these people watch game film. I mean, I got a guy that follows and goes like this. Yeah, I just watched the Saints game from last year. They ran the ball 38 times, Saleo, and they had 5-1. I'm going, I didn't even watch that thing. It's incredible.
Yeah, they're like that. As a sports talk host in Philly, you almost feel like you're on the defensive. Like they want to make the case that, they obviously know more than you. And how did you get your job? I should be in your job type of mentality. But, that's the kind of thing you roll with in Philly. Hey, listen, this is a town that hasn't won enough for the size of the city. So people are programmed to, let's go. We don't have any patience. The Super Bowl's in 2017. Now, it was a honeymoon period, but it was short. And now you're looking at like, oh, you got to fire this guy. There's absolutely Doug Peterson is like he passed through the night and now it's gone. So let's move on and win something else.
Okay, so Mike, I had Seth on last week and I said, hey, look, man, Mike's he's gonna light that trash can on fire on you, bro. He's that guy, and he's like, well, I go, I don't know, man. Paisans know how to get in there, and my grandfather goes rattle the chain, he can do. No horn blowing around Italian guys. And he goes like this. He goes, I can handle Mike. I go, oh, I want to see this. Hey, look, I can't wait for this, man. Congratulations to you, man. And listen, it's our honor to have you, somebody who has been so established in a market like that we would have you here on our network. And it really is. When I first heard it, I'm like, you got that guy? I go, so one day you're talking to some stiff over here, and the next time you're talking to Mike Messinelli, I go, that's pretty awesome, man. So I'm so looking forward to this post-game show with you.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, it's funny because I was just sitting around and I'm going, maybe it's time to just relax, shut it down, and like work, build
that ain't
a winery,
happening.
Do a winery, and then all of a sudden the opportunity presented itself with JAKIB Media, and they said we would like you to quarterback the show with Seth Joyner and Derek Gunn. And I said, that sounds like fun. That sounds like it'd be an interesting dynamic. So we had a big press conference to introduce the show, and I know exactly how to push Seth's buttons because I know how he thinks. So in the press conference, it was almost like we did the show. And, I'm moderating now. I'm in a position now where I'm just going to moderate back and forth instead of like coming over the top, give my opinion, because I got Seth there, and I can't like overpower him. So he goes on this rant about how the Eagles don't have any leaders on defense, and so my eyebrow goes up, and all I had to say was 2 words, and I go to him, I turn to him, I go, Fletcher Cox, and that lit him up for like 10 minutes on a dissertation about how he didn't think he was a leader at this point. And so that's the kind of trick I'm going to pull with stuff. I don't have to go back at him. I'll just throw a couple of choice words to trigger him, and I think it's going to be a fun dynamic.
Absolutely. So wait a minute here. Are you going to try to tell me you're not coming off the top rope? I doubt it.
No, listen, Dave, let me tell you. I got these 2 guys. Derek Gunn has been inside the locker room for a really long time. I got Seth, who's like way overly opinionated, and a next player. So I'm just going to shift it. I'll have some things to say, but I think people will be interested more in the dynamic of Seth, Derek Gunn with the inside story, and I'll just try to, I'll be the ball breaker, and I'm good at that. So
absolutely. Hey, Mike, I want to leave you with this. Tell me one thing about this man here, and tell me what you thought of his stay when he was a Philadelphia Eagle.
Listen, about Jerome. He captured the town like right away with his personality, his infectious personality, the way he played, the way he just gave it all. And in Philly, so appreciated a guy like that. It was so tragic. The way it happened, and he would have been an all-time like top 5 name in Philadelphia had he played his career here. That's how much he resonated. The stories about Jerome that I told in the book, and you being his teammate are just hysterical. I talked to Michael Irvin for a really long time for the book, and the stories he told about Jerome were just fantastic. And you guys would go out to the clubs in Phoenix. Because, like, I agree with you. Like, if you're watching film of Penn State, you got Miami, you're playing for Miami, you go, they can't beat us.
We started. I opened the game, Mike, with a 15-yard. I opened the game with a 15-yard sack. I'm standing over the guy. Jerome gets the 3rd sack. We go back to the huddle, and the O-line of Penn State's. We start laughing. We were just like this. Jerome just started laughing.
No, I get it. And so that week for you guys was like, okay, we can, we can win. We're going to win this game. So let's have fun. And so the story Irvin that tells me about going to the clubs in Phoenix, and so we go out in packs of 20, and the first guy would come in and go, it was a cover charge at $10 or whatever it was. The guy behind me's got it. Guy behind me's got it. Guy behind me's got it. The last guy is Jerome Brown. And Irvin goes, now who the hell going to tell Jerome Brown to pay a cover? And they're just great stories that came out of that.
Hey, Mike, we're at the steak fry, and I'm standing next to him, and he goes like this. Did the Japanese sit down with the Americans before? And I go, no, dude, that's not the story. That's not the story. I go, you got this thing backwards, guy.
No, it was classic. I mean, you guys made it really easy for me to write that book.
It's one of the absolutely greatest books that define, and I talk to Jimmy Johnson about that all the time, and I go, I've never read a book that defined who we really were.
He wouldn't talk to me.
Jimmy wouldn't?
He would not talk to me for the book. That loss hurt him so bad.
Oh, yes.
Or Vinny wouldn't talk about it ever.
Let me tell you, Mike, Jimmy says this, it's the loss that taught him how to win games. He said that loss to this day is the most painful moment in his entire coaching career because, hey, Mike, we go into the locker room, everyone's in tears. And I'm sitting there and I go like, I go like this. Now we win the national title next year, but I'm sitting there and I go like this. I'm looking around the room. I see Highsmith and I see all these first round guys. And we just sat there, and like I said, I'll never forget Paterno coming into our locker room, going, you guys are one of the greatest teams of all time. We kind of took it – at the time, you don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
But then you think about it later on, and you're like, Joe didn't have to do that. And there were so many great storylines. I mean, the president made a halftime. That whole thing was such a dynamic moment, and I'll never forget that moment as long as I live. Even though it's funny, Shane Collins like this – Sills, don't you remember me shaking your hand? I go, I don't remember anything after that game except for Penn State people going, we got you. Mike, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it. Hey, I can't wait to this post-game show, man, and I'm so glad that you're part of what we're doing here. Thank you so much,
my friend. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. Mike Missinelli here, legendary sports talker with the Philadelphia folks. And Guys, you know him better than anybody. That's good stuff. I can't wait for the upcoming season here too. So Eagle football right around the corner. Don't forget our friends at Morgan & Morgan. Please hit the like button, by the way, where the fee is free. Hey, know this. If you're hurt or injured on the job, one of the most important things that you could possibly have is this. Morgan & Morgan behind you. For the people, it's not a slogan. It is who they are and what they do. They've collected over $13.5 billion over 30 years for their clients. That's who they are. Over 800 attorneys and offices in Philly, New York, and in Florida make them the #1 law firm in the entire country. That's right. Look, the call is free. The consultation's free. 800-512-1600. That's 800-512-1600. Look, open 24/7, 7 days a week. And when you call Morgan & Morgan, do me a favor, tell them Big Sil sent you.
When choosing a lawyer for your injury case, you may ask, does the size of the law firm matter? Well, of course it does. The insurance company, they're huge with unlimited resources. And whether your case is big or small, they're built to bully you out of the money you're owed. But here's the good news. We're big too, the biggest actually. And we're built to fight to make them pay for all that was taken from you. Size is our strength. There's only one Morgan & Morgan. ForThePeople.com.